Cheers, hugs, smiles. Some too excited to go, others reluctant to let go. As the schools opened their doors for the first time in 2018, thousands rushed in for the start of the new session. But for 55 learners in Vereniging, it was not going to be a smooth beginning.
Inside here, they're clowning. They don't want to accept black people. There is no black student inside here.
The whole case of racism is uncalled for.
Majority of the residents around here are black.
Unfortunately, he decided to be Solkezna, he decided to be a steering and so on.
As some seek to make political capital over a controversial language and admission policy,
we are going to shut down the school. There's no one who's going to enter now. There's no one who's going to come out.
We need to remember that it's about children that need to learn. We can't infringe on someone's right to be able to learn.
Who is to blame for denying innocent learners access to quality education? Gauteng has become the education hub for learners, both from within and outside the province. Consistently one of the top performers in primary education sector, Gauteng sees thousands vying for a place in its quality schools every year. This year, it meant that as on the first day of the 2018 academic year, more than 28,000 children still needed to be placed. That leaves the Provincial Education MEC, Panyaza Lisufi, with a huge task to ensure that every learner secures a seat.
We indicated that we've got 31,000 learners that needed to be placed. Of the 31,000 learners that needed to be placed, we only successfully placed 2,565. So if you've got 2,000 people looking for 180 spaces, and we've taken 180, or if we have added, say, extra 20, you push the school to say, please accommodate extra 20 or extra classroom. The remaining 1,000 odd still feel that they need to take. And that's the reason we've got the 31,000 that are still in place, because every parent now is refusing to take our alternatives. They want GP boys, they want Pretoria girls, they want Cares, they want Bryanston High, and unfortunately those particular schools are full.
With almost 30,000 pupils to place, the department had been identifying schools that could absorb learners, and one of the names this quest threw up was Hoërskool Overval.
It is the view of the department that Overval Secondary School used language to exclude learners in violation of our admissions regulation. The notion that the school is full is also contested by the department. It is not accurate that the nearby medium schools still have space to accommodate the learners, because we've got this data. We are running an online registration. We know which school is full, which school is not full.
Gauteng Education Department had 55 learners from Vereniging who still had not found a school to attend. As the only high school in the area that still seemingly had vacant seats, Hoërskool Overval was a statistically easy choice.
In placing a learner at a particular school in terms of sub-regulation 8 and 9 above, the district director and head of department respectively shall have regard to A, the proximity of the school to the learner's place of residence or his or her parents' place of work, and B, the capacity of the school to accommodate that learner relative to the capacity of other schools in the district.
But the Afrikaans medium school refused to make space for the English-speaking learners. While the school cited lack of capacity as a reason, the Education Department blamed it for using language as a tool for segregation. A deadlock led to Oeverval Hoërskool hauling the department before court through an urgent application.
Let's start with Hoërskool Oeverval. Hoërskool Oeverval says that they only have 17 classrooms available and they cannot accommodate the extra learners, while the Gauteng Education Department says that in fact 21 classrooms are available, and even after accommodating the 55 learners, the school will still not be at capacity. Hoërskool Oeverval says that they are not geared to be a dual medium school, while the Gauteng Education Department says that they have put in the necessary resources, English educators and learning material in place. Hoërskool Oeverval says that they can't expect Afrikaans-only schools to admit pupils against its language policy. Now, the Department of Education says that language cannot be used as a tool to segregate learners. Hoërskool Oeverval says language policy has rejected on the basis of informal discussions, while the Gauteng Education Department says that they have constantly engaged with the student governing body on the issue of taking English learners since 2016.
The important point is, my lord, failure to certify a language policy doesn't make that language policy of no force and effect. Because if you want to nullify it, you must act in accordance with 18A3 of the Education Act. And it doesn't actually use nullify. It actually respects the governing body.
The list of 142 learners has long since ballooned. After receipt of the instruction, the school has gone further to admit 20 more learners. It's not an issue of capacity, but the issue revolves around language.
The initial capacity is 658, based on 145 learners. 142 learners. If you add 55 to the number of 142, you get a number of 702 learners. And that exceeds, on the version of the respondents, their own capacity calculation.
What then happens if an English learner applies in an Afrikaans school, gets admitted? He's within 5 kilometers, he meets all the admission criteria. If in that instance, then the learners who have been admitted there for English are less than, if they are grade, for instance, in this situation of grade 8, if they are less than 35, well, the department will have to come in and ensure that those learners either are placed in other schools where there is place or space for those English learners.
The issue at the heart of the matter goes beyond the classrooms. Oeverval is the only secondary school servicing 5 multiracial suburbs in Vereniging. With changing demographics, the needs of the society have changed, but the school wants to maintain the status quo.
The demographics of the society has changed. And there is a high demand of English, evidenced by the 2 primary schools that are there offering English. It's a clear evidence that there is a high demand of English there.
I told the Department of Education when they're saying they're taking my child to Phoenix High School, I said I don't have money to pay for that. So I'm going to pay the transport for my child to go to school, but I don't have money to pay for school fees. So I'm still behind the school fees.
Phoenix and General Smuts are the other 2 English medium schools catering to the children in the area. They're conflicting affidavits, first claiming that their school had space for additional learners and then stating otherwise, added drama to a high-voltage case.
I find it inherently improbable that these highly qualified, experienced school principals would make such a vast mistake when making an affidavit and without having checked the statistics in advance.
The court found that the department intimidated school principals to get its way.
As is evident from the messages above, Mr. M was summoned to the office of the district director and was threatened with dismissal. It can also be deduced, based on the messages, that Mr. M, out of fear of losing his pension, succumbed to the pressure and signed a further affidavit. I am deeply concerned about the change in version in his affidavit that has now been produced after he was called to the offices of the department. It appears that he was placed under duress. 16. With the presence of possible intimidation apparent to me with regards to Mr. M, I sent a WhatsApp message to Mr. B, advising him to tread with caution.
Dramatic as the developments were, it was just the beginning of a series of flashpoints in the saga. After 2 long days of arguments and counter-arguments, Judge William Prinsloo was finally ready to deliver the ruling. Anxiety was writ large on the faces of the affected parents and learners who had been attending the court case. Education MEC Panyaza Lesufi was also in attendance. With just 2 days to go for the schools to reopen, the fate of 55 learners was now in a bundle of papers that lay in front of the North Gauteng High Court judge. Then came the scathing judgment.
On the overwhelming weight of the evidence, and for all the reasons mentioned, I find that on the probabilities, the school has no capacity to receive the 55 English learners, let alone to do so on such short notice, and to convert to a double medium school.
The ruling left the parents up in arms, with some threatening to burn the school down. The judgment also did not go down well with MEC Panyaza Lesufi. He openly labelled the school racist as he addressed the agitated families in the courtroom. Lesufi said it was a short-lived victory for the school.
This country belongs to all our children. And those that think they will deny our own children the right to get access to education, they must know that their celebration is short-lived. They must know that this country belongs to all of us. Regardless of the pain that we've gone through, regardless of our willingness to even forgive them for the wrong things they've done for us. Ours is for equality, not for revenge. At no particular stage, should we feel that we need to revenge wrong things.
The school governing body said its stand had been vindicated.
I didn't hear the entire address of the MEC, but unfortunately what we've seen since the commencement of the proceedings is there's been one narrative. The narrative is the school doesn't want any learners to take part, and while they can, what we have shown, we've been in inextricable detail, what we've shown is that's not possible. So in the face of facts, the response, unfortunately, from the MEC was emotion. And it only adds to the flames. I don't think the crowd there was calmed in any way. I think they were reserving their frustrations now and taking it possibly somewhere else.
The GDE had been ordered to place the 55 pupils in other English medium schools in the area. Lesufi vowed to appeal the decision, calling it a setback for non-racialism.
This is not the way we want to attend to problems. There might be, yes, limitation on some of the work of our officials. But in reality, this matter didn't start the way the judge said in December last year. This has been a long struggle. So we'll attend to those issues. I've issued instructions to our officials. They must ensure that they get the necessary paperwork and documents.
The MEC may have managed to calm the tempers, but the peace was only temporary. The rage over the judgment, that many labelled as racial, reached fever pitch on January 18. Stun grenades, rubber bullets and burning tires greeted the learners at Hoërskool Overval as it began the 2018 academic year.
We can see the students on the second floor of the school looking out onto the tires that are being burnt in the road. So obviously that is a concern, but yes, at this stage there's nothing being done about the tires.
Racial tensions reached fever pitch as political parties met on the school grounds, with one parent being beaten up.
Well, from AfriForum's side, I think it's important that we keep this as peaceful as possible. AfriForum has got nothing to do with what happens outside on the street in front of the school. We're simply involved on the inside regarding certain risk and security issues. The police have, I think, done their job very, very well today. There's a very strong police presence, and we commend them for that. And even they've even sent leadership from the provincial level of the police. So from our side, we would like to keep it peaceful, and we need to remember that it's about children that need to learn. We can't infringe on someone's right to be able to learn.
This protest, it is not a protest of EFF. It is a community protest. EFF is part and parcel of the community. We are parents in our own right. There is no way in which we are going to allow a situation wherein majority of the residents here are black people, but they are denied an access on the basis of Afrikaans as a language. If it was a question of a language policy, why not majority of the people becoming Southern Sotho speaking inside the school? Because if indeed it's a policy, majority of the residents around here are black and they don't speak Afrikaans.
We feel that the whole case of racism is uncalled for. It's not at all a case of racism. People and parents have the freedom to put their children in different schools, languages, Afrikaans, English, Zulu, Sotho. That is a freedom that we have as parents. It's your responsibility as a parent to register your children on time in schools. That is actually where this whole thing has started. At number 99, you want to come and register your children. I mean, what kind of a parent are you?
When all reasonable means to keep the peace failed, the long arm of the law had to move in and make arrests.
There was a chaotic situation around the school where the protesters started to burn tires, which is not allowed in terms of the law. Police warned them to disperse, but they didn't heed our call. It is why we use minimum force to disperse them.
This, despite alternative arrangements to place the excluded 55 learners.
We are happy that our learners are at school, those that were supposed to be reporting here at the school.
They are at the riverside. That's where they were accepted. You know, in consultation with the parents, we agreed that we need to move them to a new school, and they were accepted there. So we are happy that the learners are at school, and the situation outside here is quite an unfortunate one, because we said there's no need for us to disrupt any schooling. So we will not encourage any disruption of schooling in all our schools.
10 people were arrested for violence, but the anger continued to rage. Not ready to take any more chances, the police brought in the tactical response team, reserved only for high volatile situations. But it wasn't enough to dissuade the protesters. A tense standoff between police, community members, the ANC and the EFF led to a police van being petrol bombed.
No, we were sitting under the tree. We saw something was burning out on there, but we decided to move. When we moved, and everybody was coming running, and those police decided to arrest us for what? For running away? And then they were telling me that going for what? I didn't do anything. I was sitting down under the tree.
Did your friends also get arrested?
Exactly. For what? For what? She's my sister.
I'm trying to clean up. I'm not fighting with anybody. I can't allow this to happen in my street. This is my neighborhood. I can't allow this to happen. No, I'm not a parent. I'm a concerned citizen.
And then do you feel that this particular protest is a problem? Don't you feel that they're fighting for their rights?
I personally feel that everybody's got rights. But there's one thing. You cannot disturb me while I'm busy cleaning. I didn't put the mess there, but I'm prepared to clean it. Look at my hands. And now they intimidated me not to clean. And that to me is wrong. I haven't got my rights. For me, it's a huge problem. No matter what the situation here is. I've got no children here. This is my neighborhood. I stay here. I can't live like this.
We have requested an audience, both with the management and the school, SGB. They refused. And that's why we're here in the streets. But we must be able to make it clear that we are not here to tamper with the education of the kids that are inside. And we are not going to do anything with them. We would not act in a violent way. Would not harm anybody. Ours is for our own kids. That is a black child to be allowed in this school here.
Yes, my message to the principal was that number one, it is important to acknowledge the right to protest action and the demonstrations because it is a fundamental right, but obviously that right has to be exercised in a manner that is peaceful, that is unarmed, and that does not deny learners inside InFocus High School the ability to learn and to exercise their right to a basic education. So there are also limitations to that right, and that has been conveyed by myself also to the demonstrators themselves. So they are very much aware of the constraints and the confines of those particular of that particular fundamental right to protest action.
The clashes have forced many to ask, who is to blame for the tensions?
So who is to blame for the tensions? Is it the school management for not making the effort to protect and advance the diverse cultures and languages as stipulated in the SA Schools Act? The Education Department for ordering the school to admit 55 English-speaking learners and become a dual medium school at such short notice. The court ruling for failing to consider the South African political dynamics of excluding learners on the basis of their language. The police service for using disproportionately excessive force, including rubber bullets and stun grenades, to disperse the unarmed demonstrators. Or the political parties for visiting the concerned school only to fuel the tensions among the community over the emotional language policy issue.
There were extensive arguments and counter-arguments between the State Advocate and our council. All of these are on record and available to the public. There is nothing more to add than what was submitted to court. You are most welcome to read all the documents, as well as the order made by the court. All the arguments and counter-arguments are clearly stated in the documents, and I can add no more information to the case. It is up to you as inquisitive journalists to do the reading of the documents and to decide if it requires further investigation or not. From the school side, it is our request for everybody to respect the court order.
This case is just a symptom of a larger issue. Many learners still remain excluded by discriminatory language policies across South Africa. While the 55 learners in this case have been accepted by another school and will not be deprived of access to education, organizing alternative placement is not a lasting solution, as language remains a convenient excuse to exclude majority from the reserved spaces. What is happening at Vereniging, that ironically means unification, exposes the deep divides in our country.